guys, welcome back. Today I'll be doing my September wrap-up, and I know it's already 2 weeks into October, and I apologize for the delay. I've just been kind of lazy. I have 8 books for you today that I finished reading in September. I also finished 2 others right at the beginning of October, but I'm just going to save those for the October wrap-up. So I read 4 manga and 4 novels, and I'll go ahead and start out with the manga. For the BookTube Manga Club, our September read was Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon Volume 1 by Naoko Takeuchi. And this is the story of a 14-year-old girl by the name of Usagi. And she is sort of a scatterbrained student, and one day, while she's late to class, she runs into this black cat, whom she can later find out actually talks, and her name is Luna. And Luna gives her this special crystal that transforms her into this powerful being known as Sailor Moon. And Luna tells her that she has to defeat the evil, find some princess, and discover the legendary silver crystal. To do this, she has to gather up a team, and to do that, she finds 3 students who transform into Sailor Mercury, Sailor Mars, and Sailor Jupiter. And together, led by Usagi, they go out and battle the evil and search for the legendary silver crystal. During the course of the manga, there's lots of action, but very short scenes that you can't really get into enough. There's some other evil kind of group that is also looking for the legendary silver crystal. And during the course of the story, Usagi kind of keeps getting into trouble, and she's often rescued by this mysterious character known as Tuxedo Mask, and she sort of has a crush on him. My overall thoughts of this manga is that it's geared for someone much younger, maybe middle grade readers. It definitely has an appeal, I think, to people that grew up watching the anime. I had no prior knowledge of what this story was about. I'd never seen the anime, didn't know anything about the character. To me, the art, I think, overall was kind of boring. There's no background scenery to kind of flesh out the scenes. It's just all sort of on a white background and focused on the main characters. Like I said, the action scenes are rather short before you can even get into them. They're over with. The characters seem to readily accept the fact that there's a talking cat in their midst, and suddenly they are, powerful beings that have to go defeat evil. And my biggest problem with it is probably the writing. I found it very repetitive. We're constantly told who these main characters are, chapter after chapter. And the biggest thing is the repetitiveness of the phrase, and in quotation marks, legendary silver crystal, which you've already heard me say about 4 or 5 times. To give you an idea of how annoying that can be, I started picturing the characters as they were talking about it in the manga, actually doing this when they would, say it. It started to get almost hilarious. I went back and counted it, and it's 61 times in a 240-page manga that they say legendary silver crystal. Again, this is not something I think that's... You have to kind of grow up, I guess, watching it to appeal to it. Like for me, Speed Racer, it wasn't the greatest manga, but it still had that nostalgic feel for me, so I enjoyed it. This is who it'll appeal to. Overall, I just gave this 1 star on Goodreads, and I will not be continuing the series. The next manga I read for 2 volumes in the Cage of Eden series by Yoshinobu Yamada. This is volume 1 and volume 2. And this is a story of Akira Sengoku. He's a student returning on a plane from a class trip, and this plane crashes, and several of the students do survive. But at first it's just him alone in a forest when he wakes up, not knowing where he is. And it turns out they're on this island that's not even listed on any map. And right away I just had this impression of, this is Lost, isn't it? Made up in a manga form. It just really very reminiscent of that. And also reminiscent of Lord of the Flies as we get further into the storyline, because a lot of the students start acting very, very strange. Weird things happen on this island. They encounter animals that are known to be extinct, yet here they are walking around, dinosaurs and stuff. It's a very dangerous situation, not only from these animals, but apparently the students. Sengoku, when he first wakes up, encounters, I think, one of the stewardesses and then 2 other students eventually. And that little group of 4 sort of then try to find out where the rest of the students are and what happened to them, which they learn through a videotape and are quite shocked. There's also this mysterious masked character that kind of attacks Sengoku. He's in a school uniform, so he might be a student. Maybe he stole someone's uniform, but we don't know. But it's very evil and creepy, and it definitely had a really neat feel to the whole thing. I like the overall artwork of the manga. I'm going to show you a couple pages. But then there's a couple bits here and there with regard to what they call fan service. Too many images of girls in short skirts and panty shots I didn't care for, but that aside, I pretty much enjoyed the rest of the manga. I gave both volumes 4 stars, and I'm definitely looking forward to finding out more of what's going on this island. The last manga I read this month was the second omnibus edition of Bloodland, and this is by Yuki Kadama. It's about a vampire by the name of Stas who rules the sector of the demon world. He has an older brother by the name of Braz who lives in the demon world Acropolis up above. And they also have a younger sister by the name of Liz, and that's her on the back, which we kind of encounter in this volume. And what happens is this human girl by the name of Fuyumi, I think that was her name, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, she, while still alive, fell into the demon world and encountered Stas. And then shortly after, she's killed, but still kind of there as a ghost-like figure. And he's determined to kind of bring her back to life. There's a book known as the Resurrection Book that his brother had actually written. And he seeks out his older brother's help in trying to resurrect Fuyumi. The thing is, they are not on very good terms, and when he returns to the demon world Acropolis, he's sort of captured by Liz, and eventually meets up with his brother, and they discuss things. But his brother, although agreeing to help, has some sort of other plan of his own, and we don't quite know what that is yet. So I'm really intrigued to find out more about what he's up to. I like Liz's character. She always goes around in these weird masks, but she's a very sweet character. I think she's just sort of lonely. There's no other parental figures around or anything. It's just her 2 brothers, and of course they don't get along, so she's kind of trapped between the 2. At one point, Stas gives her this little doll, and she just seems really attached to it, and when he asks for her help or something, he says, I'll give you all this other stuff, and he's like, you already gave me this guy. That's enough. And it just meant so much to her, and I thought that was so sweet in the book, but I really love the series. I'm looking forward to continuing with it. I gave this volume 5 stars. So on to the novels. The first one is one I listened to as an audiobook, and that is The 100 by Cass Morgan. And this has now been made into a TV show on the CW, although I haven't seen it yet. The story is set in the future where humans are living on city-like spaceships floating over a toxic Earth, and populations are growing and its resources are kind of dwindling on those ships, that the government has decided they have to reclaim Earth. And what they do is they send 100 juvenile delinquents down to the planet. They're wearing bracelets on their wrists to help monitor their health to see what their exposure is like to the planet. It could be radiation or anything. They need to know what's going on down there. These students aren't exactly volunteering for this. But what happens is the plane, not the plane, but the ship kind of crashes on its way to Earth, and several people are killed or injured. Supplies are damaged. It has a typical, lots of cliches kind of going on within this book, typical survival type story. Not enough supplies. You're going to have the kind of the evil one in the group that's sort of wanting to take control and casting suspicions on everybody. That's Graham. And then you have the good guy who is kind of a leader type character, and that's our character Wells. We also have his sort of ex-girlfriend by the name of Clark, and there's another character, Bellamy. The story is told from the 4 points of view of Clark, Bellamy, Wells, and another character by the name of Glass, who is actually still aboard the city-like spaceships floating above Earth. The story is really muddled in flashbacks. Now, listening to this in audio, it made it confusing when a flashback would come on. I had to really pay attention to what's going on in the story to determine if this was present time or flashback. I don't know if in terms of the printed form that maybe the text changed, maybe it became italicized or something and you knew you were in a flashback, but listening to an audio, it became very confusing. I didn't find myself caring too much about the characters themselves. I got a little tired of the whole romance triangle between Clark and Wells and Bellamy moving into the picture here. And like I said, typical cliches throughout the thing. There wasn't enough intrigue throughout most of the book about Earth and what its condition is at that moment. It was more just them dealing with a lack of supplies and some injuries and little things going on there. There's some tension going on above Earth in the other ships, especially with Glass and her character, but I got tired of her as well. It was an overall kind of disappointment. There's some intrigue at the very end of the book that might make me want to continue to find out a little bit what's going on with that, but probably not in book form. I think I might actually just check out the series and see what that's like, because sometimes in visual form, fails in a book form, it might be, special effects and things like that might make it interesting. But overall, I was really disappointed in this book, and I only gave it 3 stars. Then I read the book of Blood and Shadow by Robin Wasserman. And this was a really intriguing book. It kind of blends fact with fiction. There's a group of students led by Nora as our main character, Chris, and Adrian, and Max. 3 of those students end up part of a research group working with a professor to kind of delve into a 700-year-old manuscript known as the Voynich manuscript. And this is an actual manuscript that does exist. You can check it out on Wikipedia. It's really intriguing. But it's written in either a dead language or some kind of secret code that no one has been able to decipher in 700 years. And it's full of illustrations of plants and animals and things like that, but no one can decipher the text or what the meaning is behind it. And there's also in the story a group of letters written by the daughter of the persons believed to have written this manuscript. And while they're researching the manuscript, it's Nora's job to kind of decipher the letters and translate them. And during that, she kind of uncovers something that no one has ever found before. And that opens up a whole can of worms, because now some other secret society has found out about this. They've been looking into the manuscript, and it's supposed to unlock some kind of secret that they're trying to find out as well. But what happens, and this is no spoiler because it's in the synopsis, what happens after she sort of discovered this is Chris is found murdered, Adrienne is at the scene, and she's catatonic, and Max is missing, and he's kind of like a #1 suspect. And in order to try to track down Max and find out what's happened to him, and if he's in danger or if he's responsible, the story kind of takes us to Prague, and she tries to track him down. And there's some other intriguing characters that kind of pop into it. It just really held my suspense, and it was interesting the way they brought this whole thing about this manuscript into play in this book. I've seen something on a documentary on TV one time about it, and I found it really fascinating. So it really held my interest, and I really enjoyed it, like the characters and the world and everything, and the pacing of it. It definitely has like that Da Vinci Code feel to it, with like the history and religion and all that kind of into play. I really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. And I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but in the background, my dog is laying on the bed near me and snoring. If you hear weird sounds, that's Skippy. I also finally finished up the partial sequence with Ruins by Dan Wells. This is the 3rd and final book. Excellent conclusion. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it since it's so far into the series, and I don't want to give away anything, but it didn't have any unexpected ending to it, kind of the way I thought it would play out in the end, but throughout the course it had a lot of action in it, and really held my interest. Great characters throughout. The world building was just fantastic. Like the whole thing with the partials, sort of these Cylon-type creatures. If you've watched Battlestar Galactica, you know what I mean. They have a human exterior, but they're not completely human. They're part cyborg. Really, really intriguing series. I definitely recommend it. I give this one 5 stars. And my ultimate favorite read of the month, and this is one I had picked up at a library sale, and it just sat on my shelves for quite a while. And one day I picked it up and read the first page, and before I knew it, I was hooked. And that is Heir Apparent by Vivian van de Velde. This is basically it's like a YA book that has a Ready Player One feel to it. What we have is a character, and I forgot her name, Janine. I can hardly pronounce it because it's spelled very weird, but Janine. And on her birthday, she's given this certificate to this virtual reality place. And there's a certificate. It's $50, which kind of entitles her to a half-hour virtual reality playing time. And she ends up choosing a game which is called Heir Apparent, which is sort of set in medieval times. There are 3 older brothers that have more the right to the throne, but her father has sort of chosen her as the heir apparent to the throne, even though she's sort of an illegitimate child. So it's her job to sort of stay alive in the game. I think it's 3 days worth to make it to the point where she becomes crowned the new king. And what happens when she's in the game is there is a group of protesters outside that are worried about the protection of children, and what they do is they go in and they attack this gaming facility, and they damage the equipment while she is hooked up to it, thus actually endangering a child. And that's the irony of it, but she's now become trapped in the game, and she has to literally conclude the game. There's no way they can just disconnect her. And what it equates to is, like, I think about a day or 3 days worth for a half hour that you're in the game. It's like time passes a lot quicker in the game than it does outside world, but she has to kind of solve it as quickly as possible, because while she's hooked up to the game, the longer she's hooked up to it, the more she can have damage to her brain and might even kill her. So she really has to work her way through this. And there's lots of pitfalls. She dies and has to restart quite often, and it's just really frustrating. But she was a really great character. I just love the character of Janine, and quite a few of the other characters. Well, you really just get really caught up in the world, the medieval world and everything. And it was fantastic. As much as I enjoyed Ready Player One, I really enjoyed this one as well. And like I said, it'll appeal to slightly younger readers and adults as well. I think you really enjoy this one. I definitely recommend picking this one up. I think I'll be looking into other books by this author. I heard there's 2 other books kind of in this sort of series, but they aren't as good. And I think I'll just stick with this one, but I might look to see if she's written anything else beside that. But definitely recommend picking this one up. I gave it 5 stars. So that's my September wrap-up. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe you decide to pick up some of these books. Let me know if you've read any of them already and what you thought of them, but no spoilers. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Did you wake up? You woke up.